Major funding for Marcia Adams Heartland Cooking is provided by Souter Woodworking, America's furniture craftsman. With more than 50 years' experience, Souter provides ready-to-assemble furniture for today's home and office. By Marilad Industries, America's cabinet maker, committed to quality in a variety of kitchen and bath cabinetry styles. By Maple Leaf Farms, a symbol for ducklings and frozen entrees, chef quality you can count on.
Hello there and welcome to Heartland Cooking. The show today is half about pumpkin and half about Illinois. Watch me closely to see if I can make it all come together. First of all, pumpkin is, and always has been, a very important food in America. It's part of what is called the Great Indian Triad, which was made up of corn, beans, and pumpkins, or squash, as they were called in those days. Those three foods that the Indians were growing in abundance when the first settlers arrived. There's no question in my mind that they did not have this recipe, which is called pumpkin mousse. It's quite a sophisticated dish, and you're really going to like it. And you begin by heating either half a cup of white rum and a half a cup of orange juice, or you could use a half a cup of apple juice on the stove in a small saucepan, and to that add 2 envelopes of gelatin. And then stir it in with a little whisk. You want it to dissolve up thoroughly. And now the Indians certainly would have not served this pumpkin mousse at their first Thanksgiving when they entertained the settlers, but they sure would have liked it. Actually, there is a very strong indication that pumpkin pie was served at the second Thanksgiving. Now we're going to put this over here and let this cool for a while I continue with the rest of the mousse. And we have in the mixer bowl 1 pound of pumpkin puree. Absolutely do not use the pumpkin pie filling. The pumpkin pie filling has some eggs in it and some sugar. You want to start with 1 pound of puree, and to that we're going to add some other delicious things, starting with 1 cup of white sugar, 1/2 cup of white sugar, 1/2 cup of brown sugar. That's easy enough to remember. These are all half-cup increments, and a 1/2 cup of orange marmalade. That's going to give us a nice texture and a nice orange zippy flavor. 2 egg yolks, unbeaten, and they've been in there for just about 5 minutes, and the heat from the camera just dries them a little bit. And then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and then some lovely seasonings, and I'll go over them slowly so you can write them down. We're going to have 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and a 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, and 1/4 teaspoon each of allspice and mace, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And dump that all in, and then give this a good pour. So it's mixing up. You see how quick this is. Then to this, add the gelatin mixture, which is now thoroughly dissolved. That was a 1/2 cup of white rum or orange juice and 2 envelopes of gelatin. And already you see it's beginning to sit up a little bit. And then whip that together very slowly. It was sort of interesting to me when I was researching for this cookbook, because our cookery here in the Midwest is so linked with New England cookery, because the pioneers who settled the Midwest, many of them migrated from New England. But at any rate, those first pioneers who came to America were of the tradesmen's class, and they were the intellectuals, and they really didn't know what to do when they arrived in America, and they nearly starved. And the Indians absolutely kept insisting, you've got to eat pumpkin, you've got to eat corn, you've got to eat beans, and finally they did. That's the only reason they survived. Now to this, we're going to add 2 cups of whipped cream. One of the advantages of this dish is that you can make it a couple of days in advance, because with those 2 envelopes of gelatin, it holds up very well. This is 2 cups of whipping cream that's been whipped, and then you're going to fold it in. And folding is this motion, up and over and down. And then you move the bowls a quarter of a clockwise turn, up, over and down, move the bowl, up, over and down, and move the bowl. Lightness, too, remember, you don't want to be rough with this because you want to keep the air from the whipped cream still in the mixture because that's what makes it moussey, not deary, not catty, not doggy, but moussey. There we have it, all right? Now, this is done in a bit of a hurry, as you might guess. You can serve this two ways. You can put it in a lovely big bowl and serve it on a buffet and let people serve themselves, or you could put it in a handsome balloon glass like this, or even one of your old-fashioned sherbet glasses that belonged to your grandmother, or a piece of depression glass. Isn't this pretty? And here we have smooth, elegant pumpkin mousse. The next recipe comes to me from Chicago, and the Chicago chef, Michael Foley. He's very well known in Chicago, and for good reasons. And this recipe is called roast pear with pumpkin sauce. And what you're really doing is to poach pears in individual foil bags, and then you bake them. You poach them by baking them, and then you make a lovely cream sauce that's seasoned with pumpkin, and I'll show you how to do all of that. But first of all, let's begin with the pear. And you take a raw pear, and we're going to do this unpeeled, which I think is interesting, and that's why you have such a great intense pear flavor when you're finished. And you take out the core of the pear like this. You can see, yes, that's all out. Now you want this pear to be a sturdy, upright pear. You don't want any tipsy pears on your dish. So we're going to have to take off a little of the bottom to make it smooth. See, oh, he's sitting up very well indeed there. And then take a foil square about 12 inches by 12 inches. And here we are. And we want to put inside the pear a good tablespoon and a half of cold butter. And you can use it cold or warm. Cold works, but this will be all right, I think. We'll try it. And stuff butter in here. Ooh, gooey. Gooey good, too, right? All right. You know, I have ideas on this. I don't know what Michael would think of it, but I think you could put macaroons, those chewy macaroon cookies in here. I think that would be good. And then sort of make this little pouchy thing like this, because now it has to hold some liquid. And then over this little bag, pour about a tablespoon and a half of pear nectar, or you could use white wine, or you could use a little bit of orange juice. And then make a little bag. And make it airtight, but leave some room so the wonderful butter flavor and the wonderful pear nectar or the white wine can steam that pear. So you're poaching the pear, then in the oven. Then bake this for 30 minutes to 1 hour. And it turns out just beautifully. And so we will set that aside, and this is to bake for, as I say, 1 hour to 30 minutes, and I'll show you later how you can tell if it's done. The next thing we're going to do is to prepare the sauce. And in this KitchenAid, we have 7 eggs, 7 egg yolks. And on the sauce, we have added, I have to find my recipe here, people. Be patient. Aha! 7 egg yolks and 1 1/4 cup of sugar. And you have beaten these until what we call ribboning. And let me show you what that is. See? That's very obvious, a ribbon. And then to that, you're going to add 1 quart of scalded milk and a teaspoon of vanilla. And you could add that any time. And add that very slowly. This is this hot milk. Add this very slowly to the egg yolks while you're beating. Do not overbeat. You do not want this to be foamy. Because if it gets too foamy, then you're going to have problems with this thickening up. It's just mixed. Take it and put it right back into the pan and then cook it over medium-low heat until it's thickened. Now again, do not whisk this. You don't want to add more foam. Don't whisk it at all. Use a wooden paddle again over medium-low heat. This will take maybe 10 minutes, and don't let it ever get too hot. Now, if something like that should happen to you, and it does get too hot, and it curdles, what you can do is just quickly put it in your food processor, turn it on, and whip out that curdling business, and it's just perfectly all right. Now we're going to finish up the presentation. As you might guess, since this is going to be too hot, I have here some of the sauce already made and chilled. And I'm going to add that to 1 cup of pumpkin puree. Whisk it in. This would absolutely be delicious on gingerbread as well, or maybe even poured over a baked apple. Wait until you see how it comes together, and it's so pretty too. Michael Foley was the very first chef in the Midwest who really understood that the wonderful ingredients we have here are truly fine, and that we ought to be using our own things instead of importing fish from France and vegetables from California and through Long Island. This isn't necessary at all. We have wonderful things here in the Midwest, and Foley said, let's use them. Let's showcase Midwestern American ingredients, and so that's what he does in his restaurant. And since then, he has started truly a whole new trend in cookery in the Midwest. What's better than black walnuts or wall-eyed pike from Michigan or persimmons from southern Indiana? Now we're ready to finish up this pear dessert. Aren't these gorgeous? This is how they look when they're finished. And this is what they are when they first come out. I'm going to show you. Now, these have been baking for about 30 minutes. And the way you tell they're done is you take a skewer, turkey skewer. Aha! You see, it's tender. So you know that this is ready to go. And then you unwrap it. And there is our pear. And it has this wonderful juice in the bottom, which you probably, if nobody was looking, you could drink up. And then you just very carefully peel it. Think what an intense flavor this pear has. So, but that's going to take quite a while to get those done, so I'm going to hurry and finish up the sauce this way. Here it is. You're going to see how we do this. Now, Michael puts these on individual serving dishes at his restaurant and serves them with pound cake that has cinnamon sticks that have been ground up in a food processor, so they're still quite coarse, and it makes a lovely accompaniment. And then he serves it with hot spice cider. So this is a presentation of the sauce, and then you put these beautiful pears, which have been garnished with mint down the center, and we have poached pears with pumpkin sauce. That wasn't so hard now, wasn't? Isn't that pretty? You would be so proud to present this to any dinner party you were going to have. There it is. Now that we've done these unusual pumpkin recipes, I'd like to show you an unusual pumpkin happening, the Pumpkin Festival in Centerville, Ohio.
One of the fun things to do in the fall in the Midwest is to go to a pumpkin patch and gather your own pumpkins. Patch is a misnomer. Most pumpkins are grown in large fields on sprawling vines. They need lots of room to grow. Buying pumpkins for Halloween is a great family outing, and in some places you can have all you can carry for $1. Centerville, Ohio, a town of 13,000, has an annual pumpkin festival the third weekend of every October. Look at the size of these flamboyantly large pumpkins. Some of them weigh 400 pounds or more. The secret is in the seed. Use either Atlantic giant or Hungarian giant, plus lots of compost and water and root feeding. The rumor that hormones are shot into these pumpkins is unfounded. And the festival is famous for its pumpkin food specialties: waffles and pumpkin burgers and candy, old-fashioned pumpkin pie, and the world's largest pumpkin pie, 5 feet in diameter. It uses 80 pounds of pumpkin to prepare it. The symbol of the Centerville Festival is the pumpkin tree, and at its base are pumpkins of all shapes and sizes, and you can also buy gourds and squashes. And while you're there, be sure to try this Ohio specialty, a dill pickle on a stick. Every day has a parade. This was the pet parade day, with hissing and barking and tugging at leashes. And then the band begins its papa, and the floats roll by an appreciative audience that comes from all over Ohio and neighboring states. 400,000 visitors in all. It was a wonderful experience. The best dressed cat? I should enter Emily and Edith next year.
Now, that was really a fun festival, as you could see. And so that sort of takes care of the pumpkin portion of this program. When I was at Michael Foley's restaurant at Printers Row, he gave me a recipe for roast pork with couscous, which is sort of a new way to present an old favorite, and he's known for that. We ought to start with the couscous right away so it can be cooking. This is a wonderful product. I'm going to get it starting to cook so I can work on the meat portion. We're going to use an instant version of couscous today. It's a lot quicker, and actually couscous is made of durum wheat. Look at it. And it's and they call it semolina sometimes. It's very finely grained. And follow the instructions on the box because it varies from manufacturer to manufacturer. Today we're using 1 1/4 cup of boiling pork stock, and to that we're going to add 1 cup of couscous and stir that up and bring it to a boil. And then you just let that set covered for 5 minutes. Couscous is a, what should I say, cereal, really, that originated with the Berbers in North Africa. And as I mentioned to you earlier, the basic ingredient is semolina. It's really special. And I would suggest that you use it instead of pasta or rice. Now we're going to work on the meat portion, and it's really wonderful. Earlier, I sauteed a 3 to 4 pound pork loin roast and dredged it first in a mixture of flour, 1/4 cup of flour and some salt and pepper, and then sauteed it very, very slowly in 1/4 cup of olive oil. Take your time doing this. You don't want this to burn or get too brown because you will ruin the flavor of your sauce, and the sauce is terribly important. I removed the meat, and then I added 2 medium onions and 4 garlic cloves and sauteed those. And then remaining here in this pot are more wonderful vegetables that are going to give the couscous sauce a delightful flavor. 2 turnips that have been cut up in 6, then 2 carrots, and a stalk of celery. Again, brown very, very slowly. Now I'm going to sort of reassemble the whole thing. Place the pork roast back into the pot on top of those sauteed vegetables, and then add the onions and the garlic. And we're going to add some other vegetables at this point too. We're going to add this. Look, this is fennel. This is a very popular bulb sort of vegetable that's popular in the Mediterranean, not so much in America. It tastes a little bit like sweet anise, not overpowering though. And then these are tomatoes. There's 2 of them, and you want them, the seeds taken out, but leave them in big pieces because you want them to hold together during the cookery. And then some nice herbs. We're going to add French thyme today, and the recipe calls for a tablespoon of fresh. I'm probably going to add a little more, or you could use a 1/2 teaspoon of dried and just snip it in there, and you can be kind of casual about the size because this is going to cook a long time, and 6 or 8 peppercorns. And then overall, pour 1 quart of stock, and this could be chicken stock or meat or pork stock that you might already have on hand. I happen to use chicken stock because I always have that frozen. Now the thing to do next is to insert a meat thermometer in the pork because you always want to make sure that pork is done thoroughly. Bring this to a boil on the stove and then bake this for 1.5 hours at 325 degrees or until it registers about 180 degrees on your meat thermometer. And this is, you can do all this in the morning if you like and set aside and then bake it. Then for the presentation, that's the pretty part and the interesting part. And I've got one finished over here to show you. Now, and it's really a treat. I served this a couple of weeks ago at a dinner party when I was retesting it for this show, and my guests just raved about it. Put that down. You will find couscous in your supermarket, at the region in the supermarket where they keep rice and where they keep pasta grains. Now, I wanted to remind you on this couscous business itself, you're not actually cooking this. You're just letting this steam in that hot broth. You don't have to cook it at all. That's what makes it such a glorious thing. Now, this is the way it looks when it's assembled. But first of all, you put out your pork and you slice it and you arrange your vegetables. And then what you want to do is boil down the broth uncovered to half its volume. That's important. The flavor is much more intense that way. The couscous is always heaped up in the middle, as you can see, and there it is, practically done and ready to go. I'll just leave the lid off so you can see how it looks, how fluffy it is, and how pretty. Hasn't even been cooking 5 minutes and it's nearly finished. You could add all sorts of herbs and spices to that if you like, if you were going to serve it without the pork. Put that in the middle, arrange your vegetables nicely, and then over the top you're going to pour about 1.5 cups of this reduced broth, and that's what gives it its wonderful flavor and its juiciness. You want to be sure to put this on a lipped platter. Isn't that nice? And then we'll garnish it here with a bit of parsley and fix it up. This is couscous itself. They would is a Muslim dish. They would not eat it with pork. And it's been very popular in the Muslim world for centuries, actually. And because the French traveled so much in Morocco, they learned to love it too. But it wasn't until after World War II that couscous became popular here in the United States. And I'm just going to put some pepper on this. My pepper grinder is gone. I'm going to have to send out an alert for my pepper grinder. There we are. There. The accompaniment to this is generally sweet mint tea. We'll leave Chicago now and move through miles of cornland to the town of Lewiston, Illinois. This was the area that lured those early settlers. It was because of the rich topsoil, 10 feet deep and black as gunpowder. It promised them a good life. The next recipe is from Lewiston, which incidentally is spelled Lewistown, and it's a black raspberry silk pie, and we'll get right to work on it. Today, however, we are making it with blackberries. The two berries really are interchangeable, blackberries and black raspberries. This is what blackberries look like. Aren't they lovely, plump and juicy? And this is the pulp. We have taken these berries, 2 cups of them, pureed them in a food processor, and strained them to this lovely puree. In the mixer are 3 whole eggs, and beat them just very lightly. And then we're going to add lots of other glorious but simple things. 3 cups of whipping cream. I said that wrong. It's 1.5 cups of whipping cream. It's 3 of those little boxes, but 1.5 cups of whipping cream. I get all confused, and I don't want to confuse you like that. 1.5 cups of whipping cream. And 3/4 cup of sugar, and a teaspoon of vanilla, and a pinch of salt. And then, of course, the glorious puree that we have right here. Put that all in together into the mixer, and then just briefly mix it. Again, not wanting to create too much foam. This is so pretty. It's an intense purple. And then you will want to have prepared a 9-inch lightly baked pie shell. And there it is. And then pour in the puree. One thing that was fascinating to me about Lewiston, that it was also the site of Edgar Lee Masters' prize-winning book, The Spoon River Anthology. Now, you bake this pie for 10 minutes at 425 degrees, lower the heat to 325, and bake for 35 minutes more. It'll be a little jiggly when you take it out, but that's okay. It'll cool down and be quite perfect. Let's review what we did today. Our first recipe was pumpkin mousse, a very appealing new way to present pumpkin as a dessert. And we have Michael Foley to thank for these ambrosial baked pears with pumpkin sauce, a very delectable dish. And do try the roast pork with couscous, an uncommonly flavorsome way to present an old favorite. And let's not forget this luscious, satiny blackberry silk pie from Spoon River Anthology country. The antique dishes we have today are ironstone. Aren't they extraordinarily good looking? It's actually a heavy earthenware made from slag from the steel mills, and then it's combined with clay. It's very durable and was first patented in 1813 in Staffordshire, England. Notice on this soup tureen, this pumpkin form. That's one reason we chose it. And also, the pitcher is antique wedgewood, and look at this graceful handle. And the sugar bowl has a berry pattern on it, very appropriate today because we had a berry pie. The name of the quilt is Basket, and it was a very popular motif from 1850 on. This one's about 100 years old. So until next time, ess a goot, eat good.
All recipes seen in this series are available in Marcia Adams' book, Heartland. This hardcover contains 300 recipes with color photographs and descriptions of the food and folkways of America's heartland. The cost of the book is $35, which includes shipping and handling. Please have your credit card ready when you call 1-800-532-4432. A copy of today's program is also available on home video for $25, which includes shipping and handling. Call 1-800-532-4432 for credit card orders, or send a check for $25 to WBGU-TV, Bowling Green, Ohio, 43403. Be sure to identify today's program as program number 103. Major funding for Marcia Adams Heartland Cooking is provided by Souter Woodworking, producers of ready-to-assemble furniture for the home and office, America's furniture craftsmen with more than a half-century of experience. By Marilad Industries, America's cabinet maker, committed to quality in a variety of kitchen and bath cabinetry styles. By Maple Leaf Farms, a symbol for ducklings and frozen entrees. Chef quality you can count on.